Well, hi, gang. Hey, now that you have completed all the drafting for sixth grade tech ed, you should have completed the letter H, plate 1, plate 3, plate 5. Now we're going to shift gears. Instead of learning how to draft, we're going to draft what we're going to build. So you kind of go through the steps before we get started. So our project this year is we are going to build a shadow box, which is this thing here. And this is a box that I built last trimester. And what it is it's a thick box. We fill it with stuff and see how it kind of casts shadows between the stuff to accent it. And that's what we're going to build. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're saying, I don't need a shadow box, Mr. Hager. But here's what you get when you get a shadow box. Number one, it's all kinds of good skills that you need to have. It's kind of the fundamental skills of how to build something. Because if you can build a box and make it square, you have some basic skills. And then in 7th grade, we're going to build on those skills. And in 8th grade, we're going to build onto those skills. So that by the time you leave us, you have a good set of skills. And so while you may not need a shadow box, you need the skills that it takes to build a shadow box. So that's what our project's going to be for this go-around. Let's chat a little bit about how we're going to make that work. You might have noticed when I was holding that shadow box up, it's pretty big. And as a matter of fact, it's too big to fit onto a piece of paper. So let's sketch this out real quick and see what it looks like. So I have in front of me a piece of paper here. I'm going to move this T-square out of my way. And I'm going to draw you how I draw a shadow box. And I'm going to use a marker here so it shows up. So the first thing I do is I draw the bottom of the shadow box. And that is a board. And that board is 11.5 by 3/4 thick. And it goes back 2 inches. And we'll worry about making this three-dimensional in just a second. So that's the bottom of the board, and that's where I start. And as a matter of fact, this board here, I'm going to put a little green arrow here, should sit on the Lucky L, okay? So I draw that board first. Then I draw a board that goes up the side here, over 3/4 and back down, and that board is 7 inches. And there's one of those on each end. I'm going to turn my paper completely around here. And there's another one. And again, it is 7 inches, and it's 3/4 of an inch thick. Then there's a board that goes across the top, up 3/4, back, and you guys know how long that one is, right? 11.5 inches, okay? And then there's a board that goes down the middle here. And then there was 2 dividers down here, and one up here, and one up here. Now notice, I didn't measure where those go. I'm just going to eyeball it. So about a third, and a third, and then I split that kind of in half, just eyeballed it. Can you tell me how long this centerpiece is? And the answer should be, yeah, Mr. Hager, I can tell you. Because if this is 11.5, and this is 3/4, and this is 3/4, 3/4 plus 3/4 is 1.5. So 11.5 subtract 1.5 means that the center rail here is 10 inches long, okay? And then we can do the same thing here. If this is 7, and this takes up 3/4, we're going to subtract 3/4 from 7. That leaves us, what, 6 1/4. And half of 6 is 3, and half of a fourth is an eighth. So each one of these little pieces is 3 1/8. All right? So those are our measurements that we're going after to draw this thing up. If you look on my projector or my screen here, I have a better copy. This is a photo of a sketch that I made, and a sketch is just a quick, easy drawing. I didn't use drafting tools for that. But you'll notice there's 2 sets of numbers in that photo. And the first set of numbers, the bigger ones, see where it says 11.5 and then it says 5 3/4. Well, the bigger numbers are the size that you're going to build your box. Okay? The numbers next to it are those values cut in half. And the reason we're cutting them in half is we cannot draw a shadow box on a piece of paper. If the paper is only 11 inches long, how do you draw a box that's 11.5? You'd have to get bigger paper. Well, we're not going to get bigger paper. We're going to do this a little easier. We are going to scale it. And what that means is we're going to draw everything proportionally the right size, but we're going to cut all the measurements in half, okay? So if we scale it or cut it by 50%, scale it by 50%, that means our drawing is going to draw the exact same shadow box, just half size. And that works out pretty well for us because it still shows you the proportion and the sizes and the places things go, but we're going to cut them all in half. So you notice where it says 11.5, right next to it says 5 3/4. 5 3/4 is exactly half of, you got it, 11.5 inches, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to square up a piece of paper, and I'm going to show you guys how to draw a shadow box from start to finish, okay? And we'll go through all those steps, and you can use these to follow those steps, okay? So the first thing I have done is I have squared up a piece of paper. While I was talking to you, I squared up a piece of paper. I have my border, my half-inch border, my half-inch nameplate, and you can barely see it, but there is a half-inch Lucky L there. So I have my triangle handy, I got my T-square handy, and I got my scale. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure out how long this bottom board is, and that's going to be 5 3/4. So I'm going to go over 5 3/4, and I'm going to put a little mark. And that little mark is how long that bottom board is, okay? And so I'm just going to draw a very light line up here because I know the whole thing is 5 3/4, right? So now, before I draw anything else, I need to draw how thick this bottom board is. And remember, I said all the boards that we're using here are 3/4 of an inch thick. Well, if we're going to draw it and it's going to be proportional, I have to draw it exactly half of 3/4. So half of 3/4 is 3/8. And how did I do that so quickly? Well, anytime you cut a fraction in half, all you have to do is double the bottom number, and you've cut the fraction in half. So I'm going to go up 3/8, 1, 2, 3/8, and I'm going to put a mark, and then I'm going to draw a board here. And so I'm going to darken up my bottom line here. And the reason I'm darkening these, usually I don't darken these as we go, but I'm going to do this so you can see the process easier on the camera. So this bottom piece is the bottom board of my shadow box, okay? So now I'm ready to draw one of those 7-inch sides. So I'm going to go up 7 inches, and I'm going to put a mark at 7. Oh, no, wait. I'm not going to go 7. I'm going to go 3.5, exactly. So I went up 3.5 inches because the sides are 7, and I got to cut everything in half. So I went up 3.5, and that is the inside of my top board. So now I need to measure out another 3/8. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3/8, which would be how many sixteenths? Exactly. It would be 6/16. Okay. So now I have the top board and the bottom board. I'm going to draw some ends on here so you can better see it. And I'm going to darken up that line all the way down. I'm going to darken this line. So now you can see I have the top board and the bottom board, and I have one side of the sideboards drawn. Okay. So now I'm going to measure in 3/8 from each edge of my box. 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3. Okay. And I'm going to draw this line up. And this line up. Okay. And now I have the 4 outside pieces of my shadow box, which looks pretty good. And now we got to put the center line in. And we know how long the center line is. It's 10 inches. I don't even have to measure that, but I do need to know where to put it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this little top divider in first. Okay. Now, remember when I said I'm just going to eyeball it? I'm not going to measure out to find where the center is. I'm just going to guesstimate where I think I want that center divider. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, I'm going to put it right here. And then I go 3/8 and there. So I don't know if you can see my 2 little marks. Let me draw something in here. And I'm going to take these down a little ways. And I didn't draw those very dark. I hope you can see them. Because I don't know how long they're supposed to be yet. So if you look up here on your drawing, what does that say? 1 9/16, because that's half of 3 1/8. So in real life, they're going to be 3.5. On my drawing, they're going to be 1 9/16. So I'm going to go to 1. 1.5 is 8/16. So I just go 1 mark past 1.5. And I'm going to put a mark there. And that's where my center line goes, right? Now, I can't draw the bottom dividers in yet. I have to give this some thickness Remember, I'm going to go down. In real life, I'm going to go 3/4. So that means on my draft, I'm going to go half that, which is 3/8. So I go 3/8. Draw this line. Okay. Now, I don't need to measure these except for the thickness of the board. So I'm going to come in here and say, let's put one here. And let's put one here. And then I'm going to give them a little thickness. 1, 2, 3/8 over. 1, 2, 3/8 over. And if you notice, one of these might look a little thicker or narrower than the other. There's a good reason for that. Well, there's not a good reason, but there is a reason for that this could be off a little bit. One could be that I'm just human and I make mistakes. We know that's not true because Mr. Hager's awesome. But the real reason is, notice I'm not wearing my glasses today. I left them in my truck, and so I'm doing this without my shades. So be kind to me. All right, so I have my box drawn. I have my little dividers in. Everything is drawn to scale. Now it's the best part of this assignment, which is making it 3D. So I'm going to switch triangles, and I like to make things 3D with my 45-degree triangle, and I don't know why that is. It's just how I roll. So, but either one will work, okay? So I'm going to go to this corner, and I'm going to draw a diagonal line. I'm going to go up to this corner, and we're doing just the outside right now. I'm going to draw a diagonal line, and then we're going to go here, draw a diagonal line. Am I going to draw one here? Nope, because remember the rule, we never want to go across the front or the face of the object. So I drew those 3 lines, and now I got to figure out how long they are. When we build our shadow box, it's going to go back 2 inches. So on paper, this needs to go back, you guessed it, 1 inch. So I'm going to go back 1 inch, put a mark. And remember, what happens to the front happens to the back. So I'm going to come up here. I'm going to go across here. Whoops. I'm kind of a bull in a china shop. I always press too hard on that. And so now I have my back in, or the back of the sides. I'm going to go ahead and erase these tails while I'm at it. Okay. And sometimes I wait till I'm done drawing the whole object and then erase the tails. But this time, I'm just kind of doing it as I go. I'm also darkening up these lines. And if you remember from the other drafts, we don't call it darkening them up. We call converting it from construction lines to visible lines, right? All right, so we're pretty close to done with the outside. There's one thing I'm going to add on. And right now you're going, I can't imagine what it is. Wait till I do this and you go, oh, that totally makes sense. So I'm going to come in here, right here, and add a diagonal line. And I'm going to go up here and do the same thing. And the reason we added those 2 lines is if this board goes across the top of this, we're going to see the end of it, right? And the same thing with the bottom. And so that's why we add those 2 diagonal lines, is to make sure we can see the end of the board. All right, so now this is really quick and fun. I'm going to come into each one of these cubbies, and I'm going to draw a diagonal line that's at least 1 inch. Because remember, we're going to cut, even though it goes back 2, we're going to draw back half that. So I go back 1 inch, okay? And I'm going to measure one of them, exactly 1 inch. And this is super cool. You're going to like this. Okay, so I put a little mark there at 1 inch. And I am going to draw from my diagonal line until I hit something. And then I'm going to pick up the pencil. I'm going to draw from my diagonal line until I hit something and pick up my pencil. And then I'm going to draw from my diagonal line until I hit something. And voila, those 3 are in. Now I'm going to go back. And from where those intersect or meet, I'm going to go straight up till I hit something. Straight up till I hit something. Straight up till I hit something. And then I'm going to erase these 3 little tails that you see. We're going to get rid of that one. We're going to get rid of that one. We're going to get rid of that one. Okay, now I'm going to do the top here. I don't even need to measure because if I go to where those intersected and touch there, I'm going to start from my diagonal line and go up till I hit something. And then I'm going to go from this one across till I hit something. Pick up my pencil, go to my diagonal line and go till I hit something. And then I'm going to put this vertical line in here till I hit something. And voila, you should be able to see a 3-dimensional shadow box. Okay. Now, some of you might have noticed that the shadow box we built, the insides are recessed in there a 1/2 inch. That can be really complicated to show that on a draft that it's recessed. So if you're a little bit more advanced and you think you can show those center dividers recessed back in there a ½ inch, you should draw it that way. But if you're already overwhelmed, draw it this way. It'll make more sense to you, okay? So let's go back to, now let's put some measurements on this thing. So at this point, you should be pretty proficient at measurements. And again, we don't want to put a bunch of them on. We want to put just the measurements required to build it, okay? So we're not going to put a dimension on everything. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to tell you this board here. I'm going to tell you how long it is. And now here's the question. Do you think we should put the half measurement, because that's how long it really is on paper, or do you think we put the full measurement on? And the answer is, drum roll please, we always put the full measurement. And the reason we do that is so if someone doesn't understand the scale that it's drawn to, there's no chance of them making a mathematical error. We're going to put the full size measurements in real world, real life. We're going to put those sizes on there, okay? So I put 11.5 there. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to put a little extension line here and an extension line here. And make sure you put it in the right place because we're measuring this board from here to here, not the total height, okay? So this is 7 inches tall. Don't forget my units. Don't forget my arrowheads. And arrowheads are extremely hard to draw when I'm not wearing my glasses because I can't hardly see them. All right, so now I need to put a couple more measurements on here. Ooh, let's start over here. I'm going to come here and tell you that from here to here is 2 inches. So we go there, little line, dimension, units, arrowhead. Okay, good. All right, now what am I missing? Oh, we should tell you, I need to tell both this one and this one. Even though they're the same, we need to put that dimension on there. And there's a couple ways we can do it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come right here, and I'm going to go up to here and to there, and then I'm going to put an arrowhead here. I'm going to put an arrowhead here, and then I'm going to write 3 1/8 there. And that tells you that opening is 1 3/8. And then I'm going to do the same thing here, but I'm going to bring this one down to here. And this is 3 1/8 inch. Don't forget your arrowheads and your arrowheads. There you go. All right, we're missing one measurement. And I can do a couple different things. There's no correct answer here. I need to be able to tell you this is 10 inches. Now, if I tell you this is 3/4 and this is 3/4, then you can solve mathematically that that's 10 inches and we don't have to label it. But if I tell you this is 10 inches, then you can mathematically solve the thickness. So you can either put a measurement here and here or put one in the middle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come right down the dead center of this board and I'm going to put a measurement right in the middle there. And that's going to say 10 inches. And then I'm going to put an arrowhead over here and an arrowhead over here. And that should complete my shadow box draft. Now, I probably should go back, darken it up, make sure that everything is good and dark and easy to see. You are going to complete this draft and you're going to turn it in, whether we're online or in person. We'll turn it in probably electronically. And so I can grade that. But what I want you to do is keep this drawing and we're going to turn it in when we turn in our shadow boxes. And the reason I don't want to collect it from you is I want you to have this with you while we're building our shadow box. And if you're at home building, I think it's going to make a ton of sense of as you watch the videos on how to build the shadow box, if you take the notes on the back. That means you have one piece of paper that shows you what you're building and how to build it on the back, and that's a pretty valuable resource, okay? So that's how we draw the shadow box. If you're looking for the picture that I used to draw it from, if you go to my Google Photos, there's a link there in this assignment to the Google Photos, you will see that not only is my scribbled out red and blue drawing there, but I'll also scan up the drawing that we just did together. I'll scan this and put it in that same album as a resource for you. All right? Hey, all right. Enjoy drawing your shadow box. Next after this is we're going to do a little safety, show you how to use tools correctly, and then we're going to get building. Hey, have a great day. Thanks for coming.